All right. I'm here with Thomas Verdi, who I've known for quite a while. Uh, you are the founder of Discontent Media Group, which runs the Film Fund, which is a film funding company. You also run Wellsboro Film Festival. You've had your short film, The Toms Play at Dances with Films, and you are an emerging filmmaker, director, producer, a lot of things. And your subject today is how or when becoming a filmmaker also meant becoming an entrepreneur, which I think is very fitting because you are very much both a filmmaker and an entrepreneur, and you're from a generation. You're a little bit younger than me, and I think you graduated from college at a time when you really had to think about entrepreneurship. Um, so, do you want to say anything up top about why you chose this topic?
Yeah, thanks. First off, thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here on I don't know what order you're releasing these in, but the inaugural episode, the first recording anyway. I'm happy to talk about entrepreneurship. It's something that's super exciting to me, and it's very relevant that you brought up my college experience because both for undergrad and graduate school, I didn't go to film school. I studied English as my major for undergrad, but I did an entrepreneurship track as well as an entrepreneurship graduate program. So entrepreneurship was always at the forefront of my mind. And growing up in an just in my era, in my generation, I saw filmmaking as entrepreneurship. No, I didn't grow up in LA or even New York, here in Philly. So it's like, okay, no one I knew was doing film. So I just saw it as I need to be successful. Looked at other entrepreneurs. My father's an entrepreneur. How was he successful? He went out and made things happen. So I took that same with my grandfather. He owned a clothing store. Not my dad's dad, but my mom's father. And it's just all these entrepreneurs in my family. I grew up in a very entrepreneurial culture, and so I've really applied that to my whole life philosophy. I've had day jobs before. I used to work at Comcast as a creative director, worked at another agency out of school, but I always wanted to be doing my own thing. So I see film like that. How do I make my film happen? And I just take that entrepreneurial mindset and apply it to producing.
All right, so I'm going to start this 20-minute timer.
Oh, you didn't start yet?
No,
Okay.
I'm still learning this format, so
Sure.
we're figuring it out. I don't know if I should be giving people the up top a reason as to why they chose this topic. But anyway,
Okay.
let's start it now. So,
Okay, cool.
all right, 20 minutes. Um, so you what I'm very interested in. So when I graduated from film school, there was a sudden shift where a lot of I think I was the kind of the beginning generation of people looking at like becoming YouTubers. I
Hmm.
remember a few like fellow film grads who like got basically funding through YouTube to make a series of shorts. And that was like kind of the first time we were hearing about this. And so in my mind a very distinct like branching away from oh maybe there's this other path um, instead of becoming like a sort of auteur filmmaker, which was very much the sort of like it seemed very possible when I was growing up. But you're about a decade younger than me, and I think your experience is probably very different. Because at that point, um, I don't know if there was. Do you know anyone who studied film that did not in any way think about entrepreneurship?
For me, they've always kind of been seamlessly integrated. Whenever I would talk to people at film schools or just other people on the festival circuit, it's always had that kind of hustle mindset. It's never been, I guess, the way it used to be for a director. They would get a studio contract. I mean, they still do at the higher level, but you don't have these like studio filmmakers like we read about, like there used to be. They would make a series of 10 pictures for MGM or whatever. So yeah, everyone who I kind of came up with, even in Philly, going to filmmaker meetups, it's always been very entrepreneurial. Um, and maybe that is a generational thing. I don't know, but I've never, until we had that conversation the other day, I never really thought of even separating the two. I always associated producing specifically with entrepreneurship. Producer goes out, finds a script, puts a package together, makes it happen. So that's kind of the filmmaking mindset I have gone into my career with. It's very much I need to do this, not oh maybe I'll get a meeting with Netflix.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I remember us talk. I mean, we've worked together in various capacities over the years. Um, and I mean, I remember us talking about when you started the Film Fund, which is a film funding company, which has been very successful. You've been doing that for at least what, 10 years now?
It's going to be 9 years this coming February. So we
Yeah.
can round up to 10. That sounds a lot better.
Yeah. Um, and I remember talking to you like just, I guess I'd always sort of assumed that you had wanted to do more I guess entrepreneurial film related work. But I think I was actually quite surprised when we talked and correct me if I'm wrong, you kind of said deep down want to be a writer, director. Um, and so I found it very fascinating that you felt compelled to do that type of work, in which you've done very successfully. And I think I kind of realized like this must be something that younger folks who study film just they have to embody or be thinking in some way about doing um, just something entrepreneurial. And I guess my question is like, is that a good thing? Should creatives be developing that muscle, or should creatives be finding partnerships with producers? I guess is
Yeah.
maybe.
I think it really is a bit of a cop-out answer, but I think it depends on the person, right? Not everyone has the mindset or the wiring to be an entrepreneur. Um, there are some amazingly creative people who don't want to look at a budget or, the profit and loss statement for the quarter or what have you, anything that goes into running a business. For me, it came about because I was interested in both film and entrepreneurship and business kind of as two separate interests. And they merged when I was an undergrad and I was, excuse me, I was in a capstone course and they needed to create a company, a project for the class. And at the same time, I was I had written a script that had gotten into Holly Short's screenwriting competition as a semifinalist. I was super excited. I was like, okay, well, the script must be pretty decent. Holly Shorts is very well known in the film festival circuit. So let me try to make this thing. And then it was like, how do I get funding? And I also needed a company idea. So in the class, I was like, what problem are you trying to solve? I was like, well, I have a problem. I need to get funding for this short film. So that's how my interests kind of converged. But I don't think, sorry, I'm getting a bunch of emails. I should have put my notifications off. I don't think the two need to be, I don't think every filmmaker needs to be an entrepreneur. Um, I think there are certain people who can wear that hat and who want to wear that hat, and there are other people who have absolutely no interest in doing so. Um, and I think that's fine. I think that's where partnership comes into play. But I think people who do kind of have that entrepreneurial spirit may have an edge in this world of, grabbing people's attention.
And I know that you're sort of, I mean, you've done it. I mean, you've started your own film festival. You started a film funding company. You're running another company that makes DCPs. And I know you are also working on trying to make a feature.
Yes.
And I know that you are now maybe wrestling between trying to raise funding for it and going the like, I guess the Substack will know the sort of non-D movement,
Mm.
which is just, kind of no budget, non-dependent type of film, which I think is this new movement happening that I think a lot of people think is going to take off. I'm curious what are you embracing that now or yeah.
Not fully, I think, because I still that project I'm fundraising for is now I'm gonna call it tier two or stage two. I'm gonna put that on the back burner for now because that I do need a bigger budget for to make that film the way I want to make it, around 700K. But after talking with you and having a script idea the other night when I couldn't sleep, I started writing a separate project that can be made for no money, essentially. maybe a few $1,000s for post and things like that and sound design. But I texted my potential crew yesterday, asked them if they, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for these notifications. I texted my crew yesterday, asked if they would work for equity, told them the pitch and what the project's about, and these are people I've worked with for years, so they replied right away. They meaning my key positions like my DP, key grip, that kind of thing. Um, and they're very interested. And I couldn't sleep last night again, it's a pattern. I was up at 3 a.m. and I got the first draft on of the script, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah.
Now it's a short draft. It's supposed to be a feature. I'm currently at like
You think
20 to
you
30.
wrote a feature in one evening?
No, it's only 20 to 30 pages. So
Okay.
I have the story framework in
Yeah.
screenplay format, but it's very much, I could make it as a short if I wanted to, but I don't want to do shorts anymore, as a director anyway. So I need to go back and expand that a little bit and just let the scenes live a little bit more, breathe a little bit more to give more room or pacing. But it's very much something I can make on, virtually no budget. It's going to shoot in my apartment. My dad owns a laundromat. It's one of the several entrepreneurial things he does. So the two locations are my apartment and the laundromat. And that's it. And there's two characters in the film. So it's very much a character driven thriller.
I,
But yeah, my plan is to make that for virtually no money and then use that to then approach investors for the bigger film, say, hey, I've made a feature before, I have a track record now.
yeah.
Hopefully it makes money. So then I can say this film made X amount of dollars and here's the ROI. I'm raising money now for a bigger project, and here's what the return of my previous one was. So I'm kind of doing the two in tandem. I don't think
Yeah.
they need to be, at least how I see it, they don't need to be mutually exclusive.
And I think that is the approach that's going to sort of emerge from more and more like up and coming filmmakers. I think that kind of lends me to a really big part of this question or dilemma, if you want to call it that, is the sort of let's just say marketing. Uh, I everybody now basically talks about how you need a marketing budget when you make a film, and how does where does that come in if you're trying to make a film for a few $1,000s? And a lot of people quote Hundreds of Beavers as being having a very successful marketing campaign for a low budget film, but they spent $62,000, at least according to Google, on marketing. Uh, like that's its own form of entrepreneurship that people aren't really talking about. There was a time when you marketing has always been important, but there were films, especially in like the late 90s, early 2000s, where you got into a festival and then got distribution. Distribution took care of the marketing. Now increasingly with companies like Film Hub, that just kind of put you straight onto streaming services, you really are responsible for your own marketing. So where do you think that fits in?
Yeah, for the micro budget project I'm talking about, I think that's a really valid question. And my answer right now is I don't know because I'm focused. Like every, filmmaker falls into the trap of let's just make the movie and think about marketing later. But you're right. There should be a marketing plan in place. And it's going to be interesting figuring out how to do that without a $50,000 marketing budget, a $100,000 marketing budget. We'll still submit to festivals, hopefully get into some that raises some buzz and we can get some press. I have a PR contact who hopefully will cut me a deal on some press work. But yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna need to figure that out. And I think I should figure that out definitely before we start shooting. So one advantage I do have is I have the film fund. I try not to promote myself on there too much, but there's 27,000 people on our email list. So when I have this feature released on streaming or wherever it goes, it doesn't need to be the headline. It could be like, hey, our founder, maybe it will be the headline. We can send out multiple emails. Our founder released a film, check it out. Um, so yeah, I mean, I do have a little bit of a built-in marketing cushion there already, which is helpful. But you're right. I don't know how to market a no budget film without a budget. So that's going to be something I need to get creative with.
I think it's going to be one of the big questions of these next 5 years,
Hmm.
as more micro budget films get made. Maybe so to get at that, we still have a few minutes, 8 minutes. to get at the heart of this question, when did filmmaking also become entrepreneurship? Was that the question? I think it was. When did being a filmmaker also mean becoming an entrepreneur? Like, do you look at, sort of what it meant to be a filmmaker before you? Uh,
I do, yeah, and I think the filmmakers I grew up obsessed with Tarantino. Um, he is the reason I'm a filmmaker today, which part of me hates saying because it's so cliched. It's like, oh, young filmmaker loves Pulp Fiction, that's what happened. I watched Pulp Fiction. It was on basic cable, not basic cable. It was on some cable channel, and it was edited and censored out. But even so, I was like, I've never seen a movie like this before. It is amazing, and it made me do a deeper dive into cinema. But those directors I read about, I looked at, his story is very entrepreneurial. He dropped out of high school, worked in a video store, made a movie for basically, I understand, not a lot of money, my best friend's birthday. Um, and he didn't go to film school, so I've always resonated with that. Same with Kevin Smith. I idolize Kevin Smith.
yeah.
Um, I have an autographed Clerks poster hanging in my home office here because I just love his story. For those who don't know, I'm sure most people listening to this are pretty keyed into the industry, but he worked at the Quick Stop, the convenience store, during the day and then shot in the convenience store, same location overnight. And he made it a plot device. It's like, oh, the shutters are jammed shut, so that's how he made it work in the story. So he was very self-made. I think he went to Toronto. I forget the exact name of the institution, but he went to like a semester or a year of film school and then he dropped out and did his own thing. Paid off for him. I wouldn't be willing to take this risk, but I think he maxed out 6 credit cards to pay for the film and the budget and everything. So those are the filmmakers and those are the stories that I grew up hearing about and reading about online, and I aspired to replicate in my own way.
I think Clerks is the quintessential example that people should be looking at when they look at how uh, independent filmmaking has changed. I mean, I don't know
Mhm.
that people realize that Clerks, I mean, first of all, it's shot on black and white, very, very low budget. They're, the shots that are like handheld, um, like pans, like it almost feels extremely amateurish
Yeah, it
in a
does.
lot of ways. And it played, at like the local AMC, you know, where today Marvel movies would play. Like Clerks was playing next to it. Every audience had the option to choose between Clerks and a big studio film.
Mhm.
That doesn't exist anymore.
No, and even these so-called indie films are big $1 million films.
Right.
A low budget film is, $1 million at $2 million at the studio level. I mean, I think SAG ultra low budget is less than 700K. That's a big number for someone
Right.
who doesn't have industry connections, who doesn't have financiers. So yeah, it's and there's a documentary I love called Official Rejection, and Kevin Smith's interviewed in that. It's about the film festival circuit, and and this was made at least 10 years ago, maybe even 20. He's interviewed and he's saying, he's talking about this change from independent cinema to studio independent cinema. And he even says, if I made Clerks today, it wouldn't get into Sundance. There's no way that would
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
Because it's just changed so much with the industry. It's become a lot bigger in a lot of ways. And I think audience tastes are changing as well. I like to think there's still the people out there who value, strong independent storytelling, especially with studios like A24, killing it. But you also have the Marvel, I hate to call it slop, but I
Completely.
feel like that's what it's become. Early Marvel movies were great. Like I was just talking about, I'm going on a tangent here, but I was talking about one of the first Hulk movies with Edward Norton with one of my friends. They had no idea Edward Norton was ever the Hulk. And
Yeah.
I was like, I don't remember if that was a good movie or not. I saw it when I was a kid, but it was different. I don't know. Things were a lot different back then.
Well, maybe to speak to like your generation, because you're one of the few people I'm talking to that I think are kind of like one of a younger generation, but you've really navigated the film world quite well. From anyone I know, like
Thank
who's
you.
significantly young or a decade younger than me, and like trying to make it in film. Do you think there is going to be a return? Do you think younger audiences are going to embrace, let's call it low budget, ambitiously authored films? Or do you think the YouTube, TikTok, short form like content, um, that sort of media is going to kind of take
I
over?
I think the vast majority of people are going to be more, unfortunately, I think they're going to be more interested in, unless there's a big change, I think they're going to be interested in the TikTok crap. Um, but I think there's going to be enough people where there's going to be a smaller subset that still is interested in low budget, ambitious filmmaking. And it might just be other filmmakers who are also the fans. That's something I realized with the film festival I started. Most of our attendees are the filmmakers themselves because we offer them lodging, so that helps in turn get them to show up. Um, and it's great. It's like a filmmaker retreat. But I realized the audience, we're in our second year coming up. But the first year we did it, the audience was, 90% the filmmakers themselves, watching all short films, watching the other films, engaging with films. So that it may be the case where we're just consuming our peers' content. And,
Yeah. That's
you know,
one of my biggest fears is that this movement is just filmmakers making films for other filmmakers. And I don't,
but maybe there's nothing wrong with that. I don't know.
maybe. I just like to think that there is an audience out there
I mean,
that that
there
wants.
has to be. I
Yeah,
there I think, you talk, this may be a pejorative term, but maybe it won't be for the masses, right? But
yeah.
I think there will be enough people who are fed up with Marvel, are fed up with Netflix, are fed up with all of that.
Or
Not that
that
Netflix doesn't do good stuff too, but it's definitely, I think the majority of people are going to want the TikTok, they're going to want the YouTube stuff, but there's still going to be a small subset, and that exists now. You have Short of the Week, you have Omleto, you have Dust, you have all these YouTube curation platforms for indie film. They have millions of followers, so I don't think those followers are going to go away.
all right, so in the very last 45 seconds, if they see another example, if younger people see, oh, I can be a filmmaker, I can make a movie for no money. This is an actual path I could take. Do you think that would change anything?
I do, yeah. I think, like, how many, what, I have 10 seconds?
25.
I I didn't even know you could be a filmmaker growing up. That's how ignorant I was. I knew movies existed, but they were so far away from me. They were so far off. And then it hit me. I was like, wait, I have a camera that can record video. And I just started Googling and reading books. I was like, this is a path. So I think if you make that discovery more accessible to more people and make it clear you can do it for not a lot of money, if you structure it with equity like you are in your film, yeah, I think the answer to that is yes.
Beautiful ending. Tom
Great.
Verdi, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
This has been a pleasure, and I will be talking to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Avi. Looking forward to seeing it.
Thanks, Tom.